Hello and welcome, everyone. This is our, I don't know how many discussions this is, the fourth one, maybe something along those lines. But this is the one I know a lot of people have been waiting for because everybody's waiting for changes. It's as soon as you step in to the Dresden community, that's what it is. So I'm sure you know who I am. J.R. Carroll, Joseph, and take it away and kind of do introductions here.
Okay, I'm Nathan. I'm just some random guy who pirates his feed. Get in here and throw all kinds of terrible opinions around.
And I'm Sarah. I just read Dresden for the first time last year, and actually Changes was my first book that I read in 2022. It was the very first book, and it was my favorite book that I read last year. So it was a good start.
Oh gosh, yeah. And I don't want to blow smoke at Sarah over here, but I've said this on other live streams I've been on. Your videos of your vlogs from Changes through Battlegrounds, my favorite videos of the year. I mean, I was waiting once because I was following your journey all the way through, and then you're like, I'm gonna vlog Changes because everybody talks about it, and I'm just like sitting there waiting, like, oh, this is gonna be good, and like just your emotions, like. Because you had been like just plowing through them and just hearing the way you talk about all the characters, how like you're in love with the characters and stuff, just like we are. And I was just like, oh, I was feeling the emotions with you too. And then, you're just like, they better not.
And then they do.
And they do. I would say things at the beginning of the video, and then I would go back and watch. I'm like, oh, Sarah, you had no idea what's coming.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, what were your expectations coming into Changes? Because we've all, Nathan did it to me, and then, and then you had everyone pushing you to read Dresden, and it's all changes.
I did not think that there was any possible way that Changes could be as good as everybody says it is, because it is, of any book that I have read in my entire life, it is the one that the most people have said, just wait. Like, it is so good. It's great. It's excellent, etc. And I didn't think it was possible for it to live up to the hype that had been built. And it did. It was my favorite book that I read last year. It is that good. It's so odd to have a book that is so hyped and then feel like it lives up to that hype.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to say I might have started Dresden right as Cold Days was coming out, something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, Nathan was killing me over here with like, I'm telling you, man, your life is never gonna be the same, and I'm like, really? Come on now, let's calm down a little bit. And then when you get there and you've been having this ride, because I went through them the same way you did. I mean, I just started picking them up like the first book I did it, and then I was like, I'll wait a little bit, and then once you get to a point, you're just like, I'm all in. And then once I got there, I was probably on the phone with Nathan for like 3 hours, just like, dude, I can't believe this. I can't believe what just happened to my life.
I told you, you know why they call it Changes, because everything does. And you're like, whatever the hell that means.
You needed hours of friend therapy after Changes.
Yeah, I mean, he opens it right up, and it's like, yeah. They took our child, and immediately you're like, well, okay, Jim, just don't give us any setup. Just punch us right in the heart right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Must have been like a slap in the face. If you didn't know what was coming, like if no one had given you any preparation for Changes and you just went in expecting like another Dresden book, it must have been like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, and you knew it was serious because right afterwards he goes to Max and starts throwing back shots, and then Mac actually talks to him. Like Mac actually says full sentences, and you're like, all right, things are about to get serious here. Mac does not talk. I think he said more in that little section with Dresden than he had in the entire series up until then.
Oh
man,
poor Chris. I thought
Sweet
it would all
summer
work
child
out.
there.
Didn't we all the first time?
Oh gosh, it was man, but what did you like? How did you think it was gonna go once you got into that initial part of it? What direction did you think that it was going?
Like after you find out Dresden is a dad part?
Yeah, like.
So I remember being like, this makes sense, because this is how Jim Butcher will finally like sever the cord between Dresden and Susan, because he sets up like other romantic possibilities in the series, and like there are clearly characters that you have seen so far who you expect there to develop like some sort of romantic feelings with Dresden. But Susan was always there, and I was like, well, this is interesting. This is a weird way for Jim Butcher to, get rid of Susan. And then by the end of the book, I was like, this is so much worse.
This is not what I thought was going to happen.
Right. God. So I don't know. I expected it to be a change. And I expected that his daughter would become a character moving forward, because I didn't think there was any reason to introduce her and then have her not be part of the series afterward. So, but I didn't know how we were going to get from like here to there. I assumed that Dresden and Susan were not going to be able to maintain a relationship after this, just given like how Harry grew up, his own parental issues, like keeping the fact that he had a kid from him, I feel like would have been a no-fly zone. Like I don't think he could have patched things up with Susan after that. So I assumed that, he was going to need to be on his own, and if Maggie was going to be part of his life, that Susan couldn't be part of it. So I had wondered if maybe she would die in the book, but like nothing could have prepared me for what actually happens.
Yeah. So Nathan, you're kind of your first time through. I mean, you got to it before any of us. What were your thoughts? I mean, I don't know, how big were you into the Dresden like community? Were people telling you it was going to be crazy, or were you more blind than the rest?
I was blind. I was completely blind. I didn't really associate with any communities until probably after Skin Game. That's when I would get on like the jimbutcher.com forums back when those existed. But I burned through those books at such a breakneck pace that I, in a lot of ways, didn't give myself proper time to process a lot of this stuff. It all just kind of came to a head at the end of Cold Days and everything, because that was the first the dearth of no Dresden and everything, because it took them 2 years between Cold Days and Skin Game for Skin Game to come out, and that's I'm pretty sure Cold Days just came out when I got you finally to read these.
Yeah, it was right there. Yeah,
because you had to wait a little while for Skin Game, and I'm like, man, this is
I was on
really
the wait.
Unlike, I was like, this is really unlike Jim here. It's usually once a year, and then the dark times.
The dark times. We're still in the dark times.
5 years between Skin Game and Peace Talks.
Right. I mean, hell, we would already been through the big apocalyptic trilogy if he would have kept his original pace. But just
close.
Everything with Skin Game, or not Skin Game, I'm sorry, changes. Everything with changes and everything while it was going on. When I was absorbing that book and everything, it was just one of those things where it's a decently sized book, but I think I finished it within a day and a half, and we're talking audiobook here, so it's not like I can speed read it. And I do not do the fast talking thing that a lot of audiobook readers will
the
do.
2.5, 3.5 speed.
I can't do it. I just can't do it. Everyone sounds like they're on speed. No thanks. So I just, that was my life during the chunk of time I was doing I was reading changes. It was just nothing but that, wake up, put changes on, eat food, do that until someone tells me I had to go do something else because, man, gosh, that was so long ago. What was that, like 2013 or so, right? Changes Changes came out in 2012. Cold Day must have come out in 2014, I think.
Yeah.
Or no. I just don't remember. It was so long ago. It was a long time. Let's just say that.
Look it up.
Long ago.
In the before time. But I mean, it was just, the experience is something else. It's difficult to tell somebody or prepare them for what that book is, because if you go too far, you're going to spoil so much stuff for them. If you don't go far enough and you keep it deeply cryptic and everything, everyone's like, well, it can't be as ridiculous as they're implying, when it very much is.
So apparently Changes came out in 2010.
Oh, Changes came out in 10?
Yeah.
So then Cold Days must have been 12.
Cold Days was
like
2012.
The end, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that tracks. That's about where I was thinking it was going to be.
Sarah, the fact checker over here, she's all over it. I love it. Oh man, but yeah, and then so he goes from there, and then and like you said, Sarah, like when him and Susan finally, like she arrives and everything, and he's basically flips out on her. And then when they kind of cool down, he's like, this is it, right?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, he goes, after this, it's over, and some people, you had like people who were for Susan, people who wanted Murphy to kind of, be the thing, and it's always not the time, but and I just have to, if my wife is out there watching this, she hated Susan.
Really? Oh, I like Susan.
She hated Susan with a passion. She, she was happy. She was, as happy as you could be, but she was
honestly,
just like,
that doesn't surprise me at all.
But and then you had, they just do so much to Dresden. Like Jim just like wrecks him. Yes. Dresden always gets beat up, right? He always has bad things happen to him. That's what the book's about. We come to expect that. But when Susan and I'm trying to remember what's the guy's name. He's so bland I can't even remember his name. That's his whole Martin. Yeah, Martin, the bland Martin. When they show up and they're like, oh, we got to go investigate this building where their headquarters and their stuff is, and they roll up and Dresden's like, this is my building, and you're like, and at least I was, the first time I heard it, I was like, what? And I had the same reaction that Dresden had. He's like, yeah, they bought this building like 5 years ago, Dresden. And he's like, well, this is mine. This is my place. And it turns out that they were filling the walls with C4 or something.
Well, no, it was considered or concentrated around his office. The C4 was like all on the walls around his specific office. So sure, it was going to go down. But if he was in that room, he would have been. Hell, it wouldn't have even been pulped. He would have been atomized.
Yeah, I just love his. He's almost like Dresden knows like how bad these people are and how much they want to go after him, but he's kind of like you get this feeling of him where he's always like, come on, guys, yes. when Martin and Susan come, basically they come out or whatever. He's like they said they were doing asbestos treatments, and then it blows up, and you're just like, and then you just got this bad feeling, like after that happened, like I don't know, was it just me that had this creeping feeling after that happened that like this was just the beginning of like Dresden's emotional like descent?
Yeah, not at all. I'm right there with you. I was like, yeah, this is the start of a lot of bad things, and that's what, in a lot of ways, sets this book apart from the others. Like you were saying, Jim likes to put Harry through the grinder. He really screws him up in damn near every book. I'm pretty sure he gets at least one really bad injury each book. But Harry doesn't really care too much because they're physical and they're going to heal.
Yes.
They, in this book, it's entirely different. Like Jim, destroys every single emotional pillar that Harry had. Like all of the rocks that kept him stable, they're all gone. They're destroyed. And that's in a lot of ways so much worse because you can't really repair that. You can't fix emotional damage. You can only process it and, deal with it after the fact and whatnot. There's not like you can put a Band-Aid over that.
Absolutely.
So it just there goes his building and by the way, that I'm pretty sure that's the scene or like the scene structure where they introduce the Eves for the first time.
Yeah, and where they end up fighting. And I think, is this the first time that we really see Mouse use like power?
I thought that was in one of the previous books. In there was a hotel. Or not a hotel, an apartment. I mean, an apartment complex.
He did like a special bark, but
like a bark.
Yeah, but I think in this one, he's actually like, at one point when he's fighting the Eves, didn't he say he was like radiating like this blue aura?
Maybe. It's been a minute since I'd seen that scene, so I'd have to go back and reread it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more of that in this book. They're definitely showing off more of, you guys already know he's kind of a special animal, but here's more proof, or here's actual proof.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did you guys react to? So, all right. So they build up. I think they've already started to build up the Eve's reputation at this point. Like the what was it, Esteban and Esmeralda. Yep. They've already started building up their reputation. These two are badass, super assassins that are, like also Red Court vampires and everything. So they got a lot of pedigree. What did you guys think of the part where Harry blows up a few other vampires and then Esteban looks at him and basically yelps like a little dog and runs away in terror?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I was not expecting them to be like the ultimate villains of this book, if you know what I mean. Like, I was expecting them to be a hurdle for Harry to have to jump, but not necessarily to be the biggest, baddest thing that he had to fight in this book. So I feel like that is where I was sitting with that, is that there was just too much happening, and this was building up to be such a huge thing that there had to be something bigger that Harry was going to fight against. So that was where I was sitting with the Eves, I think.
Well, the one thing I can appreciate about those characters and their characterization and everything is in that moment where you see him see the situation, assess how in the dirt he is, or how outmatched he is with Harry and everything, and then deciding, okay, we're gonna fold him and get the hell out of here. That to me, that moment told me these guys are gonna be very pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets shown throughout the rest of the book. These guys are probably the most pragmatic, besides maybe Nicodemus, villains that Harry goes up against. They're incredibly practical. They're just like, we're going to sit in the bushes with a gun and shoot this bastard in the head. We're not going to.
Which is way more dangerous, right? Like, it's
exactly
because
you can't. Yeah, you can't. Plan against that kind of stuff. Yeah. Oh, you're in your house and everything. We're not going to knock on your door and tell you come out here and do a duel. We're going to throw fire bombs in your goddamn windows and burn your house down.
Yep.
Like what are you going to do? You can't punch fire.
Yep, exactly. They're not going to, like so many of the other villains, even though they're great villains, Harry can find a way to get under their skin or make them do things, point them in directions that he wants. But when, like you said, when a villain is so pragmatic that they're just going to be like, I need to kill you in the easiest way possible with the least amount of damage to myself. It's hard to fight against that, because at this point, there's some lines that Harry won't cross, and they know that, and they can use that against him, which is hard. because
have
they'll do anything.
absolutely no scruples.
Yeah.
Well, and that always seems to be the toughest challenges for Harry, as not necessarily the most powerful people, because a lot of the really powerful people he comes up against kind of have that quintessential villain arrogance, where it's like, I'll just stomp you out. I don't have to be coy. I don't have to be slick about anything. I'll just walk forward and kill you. And then, like you guys said, you have these other entities that were like, we're just going to get the job done. Like, we're, bullets kill you just as fine as, using some kind of superpower, basically. And those are the ones that always end up giving him the most trouble.
I mean, hell, what was it? Small favor, the Gruffs nearly get him when they're shooting at him with freaking machine guns.
Yeah.
No magic required, just lead.
Yep.
But and one of my favorite scenes in this book, and it always is always stuck in my head, is where they all end up in the lair of the Earl King.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so good.
I mean, when he drops in, and I love that Harry didn't mean to take them there, and he just kind of looks up and he's like, "Oh my God, I know where we're at." And then he looks up, and the Earl, and I forget what how Jim described it, but it was something along the lines of the Earl King kind of smiles at him. He's like, "Hello," And he's like, "Oh God."
Well, I mean, for anyone that isn't caught up, which I would hope you are, being a part of this spoiler-filled discussion, but like back in Deadbeat, he really pissed him off. Really pissed the Earl King off. The Earl King's like, "I'm gonna kill you next time I see it."
Yeah, it's exactly. He's like, "Yes, good job. Next time, I'm going to kill you."
I was scared at the end of because that happens right at the end of a chapter. I think he drops in, he says hello, and I was like, what's gonna happen here?
And the way he describes, were they goblins?
Yeah, he's
the way
the Lord
he describes
of
the goblins. Since Earl King's the Goblin King and everything, he described them along the lines of these ugly biological super terminators or something.
Yeah, that's how you explained him to Susan.
And then they showed that because when Harry came through the portal, the way to the Earl Kings, the Eves came through after him and everything. And then what is it? In the blink of an eye, the goblins have already hoodwinked these two, got them tied up and on the floor as they're staring at Harry, blink again.
But it was just and then Harry, thinking fast on his feet, like he does. He's like, "Oh, thank you, gracious host."
He picks up because he couldn't do that unless the Earl King said what he said. Like the Earl King being kind of what is it? Sort of throwing a veiled threat, saying, "Oh, we have esteemed guests." That's what he's like. "Oh, well, thank you for being our gracious host." And he's
I'm
like,
gonna double down on this.
Yeah.
And it does, and it makes you like the Earl King more because he rolls with it. He's like, "Shit, he got me."
And I think he does like that about Harry. I think Stephen's right. That gives him some respect for him.
Yeah, he was just like, and I think the Earl King even says something to the effect of, "It's been a while since I've had hosts here with something along the lines of with such silver tongues," or something what you're talking. He's like, "I respect that you know how to work the system over here." And then Earl King starts to kind of think for a second, and he goes, "Well, I could just hold you here as my host for a while." And Harry's like, "Oh," he's like, "Oh, he's starting to wise up to what I'm doing here." And he's like, "He could just keep us here for 100 years and just be like, well, I didn't want to be a bad host." And then of course they get into where they had to had to basically duel to the death.
Which is one of the best fight scenes in the whole series. Like, it's up there with the fight against, what's the creature called? The Nagloshi or?
The Nagloshi,
Shag
Yes.
Nasty?
Shag Nasty.
That fight's also really good, but this one
that
is
one's legendary.
Yes, but
Yeah,
this is excellent.
Well, what do they go up against? Is it called it's not called the Ick, because that was the.
No, I think it was right.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was the Ick. Yeah, because it pounded, like its chest was like pounding or something. It's something about you could hear its heartbeat or something.
Okay.
He described it as similar to the Loop Guru, but maybe not as quite as like offensively strong as the Loop Guru. And I think what did the Eebs, did they not end up fighting? Because didn't they have like another, or was it one of the Eebs and the Ick, or was it a separate vampire and the Ick fighting them in that duel?
The Eebs don't fight because they get kept.
Yeah.
They're the ones who they have to stay there and get eaten or whatever it is
that
they're going to do.
Yeah. So because there was another vampire that came with them, just a random vampire. So it was basically the Ick versus the Ick and a random vampire versus Susan, and Harry. And that, like you said, that fight was ridiculous.
Oh, the creative use of portals. Ways. The creative use of opening ways in that fight was awesome.
That was pretty slick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
you can see the way that he writes combat gets better and better throughout all of the books. And I think someone told me, you guys probably know this, but Butcher is involved in some sort of martial arts, right? Like he practices some kind, or
couldn't say which type. It would like the two that come to my mind are either karate or aikido or something. But I could be entirely wrong on both of those fronts.
But I think he has some idea of how people move and what they can do, and I really like the way that he writes his fight scenes.
Well, and he LARPs all the time too. So
there's that.
There we go.
That might be. I've never LARPed because I'd probably just get too excited and just end up Spartan kicking somebody and be like, "Oops, I didn't know we weren't going full go." But yeah, where he opens that way and drops like the ceiling or something. Like it
was like a stalagmite, I think. Like if I remember right, like the ceiling went down and he opened the way and like the stalagmite went through the way and didn't kill him, or something along those lines, and it just wrecked the Ick and that other vampire. That's not the first time, that's not the last time in this book he does something creative like that in a duel.
All right. Well, I know we're jump around here a little bit, which is fine. So Colton asked, do you like the duel or Harry versus Ariana?
No. I think the Harry and Ariana duel is better than the one with the Ick, but the Ick duel is pretty damn badass. But the level of history involved in that other duel with Ariana, it just makes it better.
Well, yeah, and it was kind of the start of the giant battle.
Like you mean the start of the giant turd falling into the fan?
Where it hit it for sure. But I mean when. And then I really, in another, I don't know, I could keep saying this over and over again, but just another scene that just sticks in my head is where Harry like he finds out that she's gonna be at Edinburgh, and like, oh, they're trying to sue for peace or whatever, and Harry just kicks the door in, and he's just like, I challenge you right now, and everyone's like, what the.
Get out.
yeah, basically they're like, shut up, get out.
Who said it up here? Someone said up top, they get mad when people call Harry dumb. I also don't think Harry's dumb. But I
Oh,
think
no.
Harry's driven by his emotions sometimes,
Yes.
and he just does things without thinking. And if he thought about them, he'd come up with much better plans because he is really smart. But sometimes he's just super emotionally driven, which makes him an endearing character. But that is a moment where if he had taken half of a second to just think about what he was doing, he would have known this is a terrible idea. But he can't because he's Harry.
Yeah. I love this comment. He says, I'm so impressed with Dresden the framework, the magic and how nothing comes out of nowhere, and that was kind of hard for me. Having went through Dresden a bunch, and then in this last year and a half, kind of getting into BookTube and stuff, and reading a bunch of books because I think I did like 60 books in this last year. Was crazy for me. That's like, but it's hard trying to compare magic from Dresden to other books, and you're just like, everything makes sense in Dresden, and then you have to kind of I have to really suspend my disbelief in certain books because it's like, the super soft magic systems, like it just comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, I want you to have to I want it to have to take something from you to achieve it, and that's another reason why Dresden is my favorite. I mean, I just, everything it takes from Dresden, and like that hits him several times in this book where he's running on empty, and you feel it. You feel like, him just burning the candle at both ends, and he's, stumbling a lot, and and he's and all this stuff, like Nathan said, emotionally is dragging into him, and he's just like, I gotta keep pushing, but he, like at any moment you get this feeling like it, he could just fall over and die of just pure exhaustion. He even kind of says it a couple times in the book where he's like, if I keep pushing, there won't be anything left.
I can't keep going. Jim balances it really well though, because even though it's not as soft as some magic, like there is substance there, he allows for creativity, so he doesn't get boxed in by, because I'm on the opposite side of things. Like I do not want like a set of like 18 rules, and these are the exact rules that need to be followed for all of this magic to stay consistent. Like I need there to be some flexibility and for it to feel magical and not scientific in that way, and he does a good job of balancing. So you have like the repercussions of the magic, but it is just tied to people's will and their ability to keep going and how strong they are mentally, and I like that.
Well,
well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the big thing there is the writer, just so long as the writer puts some damn effort into it, like actually thinks about it. It doesn't necessarily need to be super hard to the point where, as you said, there's 20 different tones to light a candle or some crap. But like it just, for me personally, logical consistency, that's the only thing I really care about. As long as if you say, dancing a jig does something, then that thing better happen every time someone dances a damn jig.
Dances a polka.
Exactly.
But now I've never read any of Sanderson yet. I mean, he's on my list this year, but like I've heard that some of his magic systems are like that, where it's like super like scientific, and you have to do so many certain things to make certain things happen. But I could definitely see like that could like wear you out a little bit reading it and being like, okay, so now and you can back yourself into a bad corner doing that too, and then to, like Nathan said, to get out of that corner you might have to break your own rules, if unless you're just really unless you've plotted everything out perfectly.
No ass pulls. You should never pull magic out of your ass.
Poco
and if
will
you've
never
written
die.
If you've written your character into a corner where logically they should die, sorry, that's where your story should end. It's a bad story.
Oh my gosh. And then of course, we got to talk about the apartment. the apartment scene. Like,
Well,
So sad.
funny thing about that. So
there's nothing funny about that, Nathan. Not a single thing.
Not the best phrasing there.
phrasing. So as I said earlier, this book primarily is the emotional teardown for Harry, and this is that personified. But also, we all just said that every book, Harry gets some physical damage. This is by far the worst he had ever gotten. He is so screwed at this moment, and this is the catalyst for something much, much worse.
This is mental damage. He rolled a 20 for insanity. He's just out now.
Oh my gosh! And I think I'm not 100%, but I think in your vlog you were like, "Mr. better not get hurt."
I don't know. This is blasphemous to say on the internet. I don't really like cats that much, but I did not want anything to happen to Mr.
Yeah, I'll because he's like, I have to go back. I have to go back and find him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees that he's like stuck up on the ledge or whatever, and he busts the window open, and he's like, he's out into the night. He's like, at least, and it's so weird because it's like you felt like Dresden had like a release after Mr. made it out. He's like, okay, at least Mr.'s out. Whatever happens now, I'm like, if you have pets, like you're almost like, I get it, man. I get it. You know, like, yeah, other people, human beings, whatever. Like, at least my pet made it out.
My grumpy cat. He's okay.
But you know, okay. Nathan, I shouldn't have said that nothing funny happens, because when he's talking to Mrs. something.
I
lady
kept
who
wanting
lives
to say
upstairs.
Hagglethorn, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of the ghost in.
Yeah, Agatha.
Yeah. So
But yeah,
I don't remember her name.
Yeah, he's talking to her, and everything he's saying, she pulls a gun on him or something, because she thinks.
Oh, she can't hear.
I think she is implying that she thought that maybe he might be there to harass her or something. You know, the way she was implying it, and he's like, "No, fire!" And then she sees the fire, and she's like, "There's a fire!" You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, "What am I trying to? I've been trying to tell you for 5 minutes. We're all gonna die if you don't get out of here."
Well, he was in like his boxers or like pajamas or just some type of leisure type suit or something, wasn't he? Because to be fair, if someone's banging on your door like a maniac in the middle of the night in that kind of outfit, and you can't hear, you can come to some conclusions.
And then they're like a 6'7" man.
yeah, so tall.
Well, and then of course, he falls trying to save the other neighbors, and when he hit, and it's
Crackle pop.
It's funny. At first we just didn't think it. Oh, at least I didn't think anything of it. I was like, well, yeah.
I mean, his back was gonna. He landed funny, and his back was gonna hurt. He was gonna have a limp or something. It was gonna suck. He's gonna be in pain, but whatever.
And of course, your favorite Russian comes to save the day. And like Harry's just kind of laying there, like, and then he sees Sonya, and he's like, "Friend, I got this." And then you're like, "Of course, Sonya's here. All right."
That's literally their superpower.
Yeah.
To show up when they're needed.
He's like, and not to go off on a tangent, but I just love that. Like, that's the best thing ever. They're just like, I get a random plane ticket, or like all the lights are green.
Father Foothill just shows up because he has a blown tire.
Yep.
To watch your kids.
That's the strongest magic right there. Just
Serendipity.
Yeah, but like he takes Harry off, and then does Harry say it while he's there, or does he not say it until he gets to the church, where he's like, he kind of don't move me, I can't feel my legs, and I'm just like, oh my God, no. And then Harry's freaking paralyzed, and now he's processing. They blew up my work. They burnt down my house, and of course the Blue Beetle. I mean,
that didn't destroyed yet, did it?
Yeah, I think
it had to have been because it was
Yeah.
the Ick that destroyed it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over that one a little bit. But that was the worst.
So before that, though, again, I will point this out every time because I hate him so damn much. Goddamn Rudy, that piece of crap.
The worst, the actual worst character in all of it.
I hate him so much.
So it makes me so angry when Rudolph does annoying things. It makes me so much angrier than if a genuine like supernatural villain does something,
because he's denying literal reality. He denies his own eyes.
It's the worst.
He's worse than Morgan was. How Morgan could see something and be like, "Nah, Harry still did it." You know, Rudolph is the absolute worst. You know? But like, yeah.
Morgan was like that meme of the cat where like they bat over the glass of water and they look and they're like, "Why'd you do that?"
Yeah.
Whereas Rudolph is just like the water didn't fall down. Like,
yeah, that's a great way to put it.
The spoon isn't real. You know? Right. But it was and then Harry's processing like his life. They destroyed his life, like because he's one of those people. And I mean, he says it. Well, they start saying it like 4 or 5 books into the series. They're like, "You're a creature of habit, Harry. Like people. How can people sneak up on you? Because they know where you're going all the time. You go to the same restaurants. You live in the same place. You drive the same car. You talk to the same people. You know, and then they're destroying everything. Like that's
what I mean by emotional pillars. I mean, like those are his. That's his stability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they are. As much as Kyle.
Fair. Kyle's also the worst.
But yeah, I mean, and he's sitting there on the stretcher, paralyzed and processing how they went, scorched earth on him. I mean, it's a full-on war. And and you're sitting there and you're like, how? Like I had a feeling that this was at this point. I had a feeling what was coming, and I'm just like, she got him.
Did you? I assumed he was going to take the coin. Like almost.
You thought the coin? Okay,
man.
This is a good discussion here. Okay, so you thought he was gonna go back to last year?
I did. I did not think that Harry could kill a person, and I know that it was a horrible person, but I did not think that was a line that he would cross. And so I thought he'll take the coin and he'll fight against it like every moment of his life, and that will become his like next big struggle. But I did not expect him to become the Winter Knight. I thought that it was going to happen earlier in the series because I said this when I was reading the vlog. The book White Knight, before I had ever seen it published, I thought it was like White Knight with a K. And I was like, oh, Harry's going to become the Winter Knight. And then as I read more and more, I thought, no, he could never. Like this could not, he couldn't do it.
Well, what's funny is I kind of had the opposite thoughts, the opposite experience. After he had seen, what was his name? What was the old Winter Knight's name? Slade, right?
Slate.
Yeah. So after he saw Slate in proven guilty, I mean, he
being
was
tortured.
He was broken in every conceivable way. As Mab said,
Leah tells you exactly what
they did to him.
What Mab's been doing to him, like healing him and loving him, basically, and making him fall in love with her, only for her to do it to him all over again,
every time, again and again. Ooh. Like that, he's so like thoroughly broken, like completely and utterly, and
he was a monster of a human when he
was
whole.
And so it's funny that they make you pity him so much because of how much of a piece of crap he was, but knowing that after seeing that and proven guilty and everything, like when that was brought up as an option, I'm like, well, that's the only path I can see him go down because, like, honestly, killing that guy permanently is a mercy. Like I didn't see it as him doing something awful. Honestly, I looked at it the other way. Like he was doing him a favor.
But yeah, so Sarah, that is like interesting. So did you think that since he was able to basically beat the Shadow, that he would be able to beat beat the coin. Is that what your thoughts were?
I think so. I think that's what I was thinking,
cool.
man. And I do agree that killing the old Winter Knight was a mercy. But I was thinking that I think more just like, I don't know if I was thinking it in like metaphysical terms or magical terms or something. Like I felt like there was a line that Harry had never crossed, and that was intentionally killing people. And even like back in book 3 when the hotel explodes, like his whole being is focused on the fact that there were people in there that he could have inadvertently killed, and it bothers him so much, even though they were people who were, some of them had gone kind of willingly into the arms of Red Court vampires or whatever. So I just thought it was a line, and I was really surprised. I mean, to be honest, I was kind of hoping that, or expecting that something might happen to get him out of having to make any of these tough decisions. But Butcher went there, and I appreciated it.
So
yeah, exactly.
On top of that, though, like when you look at the options he had available to himself, and like most damaging or most dangerous to least dangerous and everything, I think that it's probably the least dangerous. But you got to ask yourself, well, I mean, you're both parents, right? Is there any line you wouldn't cross to save your kid?
No.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like that again, as I could say this 1,000 million times, like the short conversation he had with Mab right there, is basically like, he basically tells her, he goes, this is your one shot at me. If you want me, because I can pull the coin right now, and I know how to do the Dark Hollow.
Yep. He drops down everything. And he even throws her probably the first legitimate threat that he does in the series, which is, if you don't, and I do those things, we're going to come and have another conversation.
And I won't have to be nice about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And he, and I was just like, and I love how Mab talks back to him. She goes, then why? Why me? And he's like, honestly, you're the least evil of the options. And I'm just like, yeah, that's true. That's true. But because like you said, he had to kill Slate, but I don't think he knew exactly that he was going to have to kill Slate.
That's also probably true.
But with the Dark Hollow, he knew he was going to have to kill people.
Mention crap load of them.
And then with the coin, there was always that chance that it would turn him quick, and they would force him into killing people. But yeah, I just love that. He's like, you're the least evil, and I know you. And it's like
the devil,
And the good thing for us is that then we get to know Mab. So
we know her much better, and
we get so much from it.
Going forward. Sarah, how far have you gotten in the series yet? Have you finished?
I'm done.
You're done.
You're done.
Okay. So, like, without spoiling it for anybody that's past this book and everything, like, the one thing I will say is she really does become one of the most interesting characters in the series to me.
Absolutely.
Oh,
so fascinating.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love it. Like, me and you are on the same page. It's like, I'm so glad, because like, Mad makes the books so much better the more she's in it. She's just a great character. And I think right after this point, the book just, you hit the gas on this book.
It's breakneck.
Yeah.
And he talks Mab into like letting Leah help him, infiltrate the place. He gets his mother's pendant,
the ruby,
to open the ways.
Yeah. I love that.
That is one hell of a power up right there, by the way. Having that knowledge.
Yes, that is the one plot convenience of Dresden that I was a little bit irritated at, because I was like, of course, at the very moment that you need this like familial heirloom, this is when you get it. But I forgave it. It's Dresden.
And here's the problem. It's like, yes, I felt the same way too. But like, knowing Jim, I'm like, did you have this planned out the whole time? Because if I was Jim and people were like, well, that's a plot convenience, he's like, I've known about this for 10 years.
He probably did.
I'm like, I'm sorry, but yeah, because
I guess you have to ask yourself, is this within the character of the damn Fae? Would they have held it until he needed it?
Well, yeah,
or until they felt like he should use it.
Yeah.
Well, because what she says, like, you finally asked me the right question or something like that. I was like, damn. Well, and I love that we found out that she's been protecting him for
on the
years.
other side of the Nevernever side of his home and everything. He's been scared to death to look on the other side because the connections between the Nevernever and the real world and everything are emotional. They're spiritual, like they connect on intent, on concepts, things like that. Which is why going from was it the FBI building to the Earl Kings, that made sense. Since they hunt fugitives. There, thank you. And the Earl King goes on the wild hunt, so it fit. It fit thematically, and he's like, I don't think I'm a good person. I've never thought I was a good person. He doesn't. That's the part I think is hilarious. He's like, I'm not a great person, and there's got to be something awful on the other side of that. And when he finally gets over there,
primroses, just a bunch of primroses.
Garden.
I would actually, the things I would sacrifice to have a prequel series about Harry's mother.
Oh,
because
that was so good.
For the Fae to owe her the size of favor that they owe. This.
Yes.
Right? Like, what was she like? She must
had
have been
done something so
amazing.
Unbelievably badass for her to get a perpetual favor. And one that, Leah is kind of using a little bit of her own interpretations on because she wanted to turn him into a hellhound and whatnot there. But
he would have been protected.
Exactly. In her eyes, she's protecting him. Like, so the intent behind the things she's doing is pure. So to have like
yeah, well, he realizes that. I think he even says that at some point in this book. He's like, I finally realized that this is just who Leah is. She's not evil per se. She's just Leah. Like, that's just, she is who she is.
But what did Margaret do to get that favor? Because that is a doozy of a favor.
Well, I love how when he's using it, he's hearing his mother talk as she's like she was recording it, on a recording device. She's like, 50 steps this way. Ooh, don't wear a short skirt next time you come through here. She goes, what? She says something like, I think I just gave some guy a show or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh. But for Harry, that's got to be like kind of hitting you in the feels. Like, I'm hearing my mother's voice. Like, my mother did these things, and and he's just slowly. And this is what bugs me is everybody knows her. Everybody seems to know her, but infamous. Nobody really wants to give him really information about her. Like,
which just makes you want to know even more.
You're just like, is there something really crazy? Did she, like Nathan asked, like, did she do something really crazy? That's why nobody wants to talk about it, because people don't want Harry doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was so entwined with the Fae that she took on the moniker Margaret Le Fay.
Yeah.
So, and to be tied in with, especially Wintercourt, that's
sad.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and then I love, like, and then Harry taking on the Winter Mantle, and he was just like, we didn't really know what was happening, right? You don't really know until, but like he has this weird, he changes a little bit, and he's like, nobody has to come with me, but everybody's like, it's almost like they broed him. They're like, come on, bro. Like, we've been with you forever. Like, we've been with you for 10 years. We're not going to leave you now. And they all just kind of saddle up. And, when they're infiltrating, and again, Mouse is the best. He's just like, when Leah's like taking too long to change them back, as she turned them all into hounds so they could run through the rainforest quicker, and she's just like admiring how pretty they are and stuff. And he's like, if you don't change them back now, I will literally bite your ass off.
I love
And
that.
then they have a whole.
I'm like, you talk? You know?
Well, no. Like when you find out he talks is the best. It is the best moment there.
It is.
She turns them all into hounds to run faster, and she books, and they're all like, "What the hell happened?" And then Halsa goes, "That bitch."
I didn't think I could love Mouse anymore. And then that scene happened. And I was like, oh, no.
Right?
Oh, Colton.
Oh, yes. Yes. One of my favorite quotes of all time. It's like, I chose him. Oh, man.
Which is how you know Harry is a good person.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Despite what he thinks.
And then right around that same conversation, Leia's like, "You're far from your center of power here, demon. What are you gonna do?" And he's like, "I live with a wizard. I cheat."
I cheat. Yes, I cheat. Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh,
so good.
Well, I guess.
And then they get decked out, right? Like after that is when Leia gives them their battle armor.
Yeah, his conquistador armor, so he can piss Ariana off even more.
Oh God. During that exchange, like Leia is transforming him into different things and stuff, basically being the fairy godmother, from Cinderella. And she's like, all these years, never let me indulge.
It should be the cheesiest things. Like the jokes that Jim Butcher writes are so bad, but they're so good. They're so funny.
I think that's why they're good.
That is why they're good.
And that's the thing too. It's like, if you would just randomly tell people some of those jokes, they would be like, this must be the corniest, stupidest thing ever. But you're like,
Context is key.
Dresden.
Context is key.
Exactly. It's just epic. That's all.
And and then I love, and of course this had to happen. Like everything starts coming together, right? Okay, he's got the power of the Winter Knight, so he's strong enough to do this. He's got Leo on his side. He knows all the ways. All right. So, and again, if you didn't know Jim Butcher, and you didn't know who wrote this, and you're just, your normal fantasy person, like, all right, they got everything together. They're going to swoop right in there perfectly. And then it's like some random dude is running. I don't know if he was naked or something, but he's like running away from a red court vampire, and the vampire runs right into him. And it's like, well, plans work until dudes run up and scream, and then it's like, I guess we're going down the front of the building. We're gonna kick down the front door, and you're like, oh man.
That's just another version of everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Punched in the face, yeah. Yeah, the best laid plans.
That's true, Derry. That is absolutely why it works.
Yes. But yeah, and then I love how Harry's just like, well, we might as well make a show of this if we have to go right down the center, and he like taps into that ley line and like
the earth magic.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not good at earth magic, but there's a lot of power in this ley line. I'm gonna see what I can do, and just like sucks all these people down. But of course, they were all just like fodder, and then another thing. He asked like multiple times to try to get, without really saying it, right, to get Ebenezer involved and get the Grey Council involved, and they're like, can't do anything, Hoss, and then he's like, and at the very last minute, he basically, the last communication he had with Ebenezer, he finally kind of told him, he's like, it's my kid, I'm gonna do, and he's like. And then Ebenezer just changes on a dime. He's like, do what you got to do, Hoss. Yeah. Whatever it takes. And I'm just like, oh, come on now.
Well, that's before you find out, too.
Right. You don't even find out till the end of this book.
Yeah.
And it makes that's another interesting angle of Harry's mom, is knowing that Ebenezer has so many regrets, and he doesn't want to see Harry have the same regrets that he has. It's interesting. Ebenezer's a cool character too. There's so many good characters.
Yeah. Well, and then they there's so many epic things that happen right here at this point where we're at. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Harry hits with the earth magic right off the bat, and then he calls out the duel, right? And I really like the battle, the duel between those two, but it wasn't super epic. Like he kind of beats her rather quickly.
It's more
Like
like the context that's epic rather than the
Yeah.
fight.
And he's physically outclassed the entire fight. She has him physically beaten, but he outsmarts her because she's
a one-trick pony.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I was
like
I
she
was
has
gonna say
that
a creature to habit, but yeah,
she has lightning magic. Is that what it was?
No, it was. Oh gosh, it was. No, he tricks her with it's like water, I thought, or something like that. Because doesn't he end up killing her with like icicles?
Yeah, but I thought she had some kind of. I thought it was lightning magic she had because she was doing the same thing over and over again, and then he's like, "I got you." He goes, "You're powerful, but you've never done duels before." He goes, "You keep doing the same thing. Now I know how to get you." And then and he ends up using water and his, and his winter power to stab her with like 1,000 icicles or something like that. And she's just sitting there. She's like just the way Jim describes her is like she has this look on her face like she couldn't even think of what death might be like, and she just and of course it couldn't be that the Red King was going to keep his promise there.
Well, he rules lawyered their asses is what he did.
There is no letter. There is there's only the letter, not the spirit.
Like they made an agreement with him. He made a deal with them and everything, but he was doing it through a translator.
I never said a word.
Yeah, exactly. I never said that. It was the translator that said it, but which is so shitty. And then you find out that the guy's perfectly capable of speaking English.
Yeah,
such a jackass.
Why? I mean, why wouldn't he be? The dude's like 4,000 years old or something crazy.
At least.
That.
I mean, he is the Mayan god. He is the god that the Mayan, or he's the immortal that the Mayans worshipped as a god.
Well, now they did say that he was afraid that when Susan was there invisible with the mask, that he thought that she might be the real Kukulkan, right? So maybe there is a god somewhere there, right?
Well,
and he's kind of adopted the.
Well, I never saw it like that. I saw it as they know that there's something higher than them, and they were thinking that whatever that was coming to collect. And after the conversation, or after the speech, the epic speech that Murphy is a conduit for, because she doesn't give it.
Oh my god,
that's what makes it even better.
Like I had goosebumps.
Chills. Yes, same.
So
wow,
good.
Like, or as Harry would say, goose flesh. Like when she's like, for everything that you've done to the Mayan people and everything. Like, I'm just like, oh, you're about to get wrecked. Like this is the voice of Michael coming through. I assumed it was the voice of Michael.
Yeah, that'd be the one, because we're certain that it was an archangel, and he's the most likely archangel to have taken full control over a vassal and then done that. But oh my god, just all right. So to put the scene in context here, like the Lords of Outer Night, so the most powerful of the Red Court, just underneath the damn Red King, are all putting a literal mind whammy on all the whole group. They're all down. There ain't no one able to do shit. They're all frozen. They're being psychically crushed. And Harry just has enough range of motion and stuff to let Bob out of his skull to
Bob to the rescue, suckers.
Yeah, to help Murphy. He wraps himself around Murphy's head like a fucking halo, and he tanks the entire thing. He takes on the entire Lords of Outer Night, their psychic whammy and protects her long enough for her to pull the sword, and then it was over.
Yeah.
She swings the sword, and it, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like it was like a psychic rubber band or something. Like, she swings it, and all of a sudden the psychic assault's done. They can't do it again. Like, everything about that was incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was like they were coming on her, but on waves, and they were just falling. It was this poetry. The way he was writing her, just cutting them down. Like he's like they would come in close, but they couldn't touch her. They just
Well, this is what the swords were made for. That sword was in its element. And, when those swords are in their element like that, they are, in my opinion, absolutely unstoppable. You are not stopping one of those swords when it's imbued
in proper use.
In proper use, when it's personified. Well, when it's personification.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Well, and then of course once it kind of they broke the psychic whammy. Then in comes like the freaking Grey Council walks through the veil, and you're just like, oh man, like that was one of my favorite moments. Harry just, because that lifted all the weight off of Harry. He's just like, now they came. Like he even said, he's like they came,
Mm-hmm.
And then all he had to worry about was his daughter.
Yes, was getting to me.
Because he knew, he's like, this is the first time that we actually got to see Ebenezer cut loose and what he was actually made of.
Yes.
And that was terrifying. I mean, because I think Harry was like saying that, like, and it was humans too. They had regular people that were fighting against them, of course, but I think he said Ebenezer just pointed the staff at them, and 100 people died.
Yeah,
they just died.
He just
he
unlifed them. He didn't kill them. He just unlifed them.
He just unlifed them.
Yeah,
and he can. Like he.
Yeah, that's what the Blackstaff's for.
Yeah.
And Jim actually shows that there's an actual physical aspect to what he keeps talking about. With the Blackstaff and apparently killing people with magic. Like, it was starting to, as the more he did it, it started creeping up, like, tendril wise, like, and getting into his flesh and everything. Like, I guess to protect him from the corruptive act of killing people, because it was doing some weird crap. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And this ties in. So what Derry said before when she said, I'm conflicted about Ebenezer. Yes, he ropes in the council, but was it for his grandchild or because he was going to die? But if Ebenezer dies, he knows that someone else gets to take on that mantle.
Yeah.
And that means bad things for the world, because he knows, where his priorities are and, what his morality is and how he makes his decisions. Like, thinking of some members of the council having Ebenezer's power is.
Yeah. I mean, one. Then we. Now I don't know. Does he say that it's, because we find out at the very end that it's. We know it's him at the very end, but did we know that we didn't know that Vateron was there
at the
during
time,
the battle?
Yeah, at the time we didn't.
Yeah. And so by the end of that, we're figured, like, once we knew it was him, we're like, oh, of course they were going to wipe the floor with everybody that was there. I mean, when, Odin shows up, but, kind of rolling back into the thing, of course, like, did you guys see the Martin switch? Did you see that coming?
So
I don't know if I saw double Martinception. Where
yeah.
Well, yeah, he's like a triple agent,
right?
So him betraying them, I was actually kind of expecting, just because of his character and everything. Now, him betraying them as the final act to betray the Red Court as that triple agent status there, that genuinely did get me. It caught me off guard.
Yeah.
That was
Same.
epic.
Yeah.
It made me actually like Martin.
Yeah.
Like when she was about to take out the Red King, and then Martin whap, and you're like, you son of a, but then you're like, okay, I could kind of get it, but yeah, that double, oh man, and that he's been holding that in for what, over 100 years, 150 years,
easily, easily.
Oh my gosh!
And then we get to the moment.
Yeah,
like the crux of the emotional turmoil of the book.
Oh man,
how did you guys react to it? How did you handle? How did you feel?
I cried.
I ended the war. Oh my god,
that saved the girl. I took a life.
That was so. I did not see it going that way, and I mean, if it was gonna happen, I mean, just what Jim had been doing to Harry this whole book. That was just the cherry on top. It's like I'm gutting you. I'm gutting everything you are, everything you know, everything you love, and then to have Harry be the one. I mean, he makes it make sense, right? Where that's the only way it could have happened, and it was for the, she chose to do it, right? But Harry had to be the one to take her life at the last second.
Right, Harry, who grew up without a mother, had to kill his child's mother.
Yeah.
Why, Jim Butcher?
Yeah, and of course, he had to do it so intimately. Gave her that final kiss and and I'm just sitting there like, oh God, why? And then, and then they just all dropped.
Which was
the bloodline curse was primed. It was like loading a gun and cocking the hammer back. It was ready to go. It just needed to pointed at whatever it needed eradicated. And with Martin doing what he did and everything, like Harry understood in the moment when he was seeing like Martin smile as he's being drained of life by Susan, and he's not a stupid man. He puts the pieces together and he's like, this was his plan all along. We have a bloodline curse that's primed and ready to go, and I'm looking at the youngest Red Court vampire.
Yep, absolutely.
And then he does it.
Like Derry said, it's like Shakespearean in its tragedy. It's terrible. And I also agree that's why he thinks he doesn't deserve Maggie. Absolutely. He caused
her pain.
Yes.
As parents and stuff, that's the one thing you don't ever want to do to your kid is cause them pain. So if you did, that'll weigh on you.
And not the kind that, like you said, it's something that can't ever be fixed. Like that's something that she can never get back.
Nope.
And also this, like, did she directly see it happen? Like, yes, is he her nightmare?
And that's the one thing, being a parent and everything, and you put yourself in that position, and you're just like, how would you feel? You're just like the one, he immediately, and this is another thing, like, it's weird, like people think you're just saying this, but like once you're a parent, even when it's just a baby, you're like, I will do anything for you. Like, and Harry immediately is like, she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I will do anything for her. And then he has the thoughts in his head, like, did she see what I had to do? I don't want her to think of me, like you said, think of me as the monster, in her dreams that are whatever, the monster under the bed, and but and then the come down off of this, off the book, where Harry's back with Murphy and everything, and they're kind of finally having this discussion about what they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, Harry, after this, Harry's going to have to basically reinvent himself.
Mm-hmm.
And and Murphy's like, and he's like, oh, she's like, well, what I did, I want to basically, she's like, I need to get laid off of this, and Harry's like, or something, what'd she say, something to the effect of a reasonably healthy male or something like that. And he goes, well, I work out or something stupid like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, all right, finally, like you said earlier, it's like we're moving on from Susan. And then, Harry's like, finally, we've been at this point. When did you say it came out? 2010?
10 for changes.
Yeah.
So we've been waiting 10 years for this, people who've been from the beginning or 12 books.
God, that's crazy when you say
and
that.
then you're like, oh, we're this is it. This is finally it. And then, Harry's just like, something hit the back of the boat. And
Curveball.
Yeah, and then he's like, did I put the shirt on that had the bullet hole? And you're like, oh my God. And then he just falls into Lake Michigan. And I'm just like, and I knew that the next book was Ghost Story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had started after, like those had already been published by the time you started.
But I was thinking that maybe it was just, oh, well, Harry fights ghosts or something. I didn't know he was gonna die. I didn't know he was gonna die in Changes. And I thought, well, he fights ghosts. Yeah, he does. Well, I guess he does kind of fight ghosts in Ghost Story too, but not in the way that I was thinking it was going to happen. But so, what was your expectations rolling into Ghost Story?
You go, Nathan. You waited for it to come out, so you I knew there were 6 more books after this one.
So, okay, after Changes, after the bullet to the chest and him falling in Lake Michigan, like that, the ending there, it's one of those things that it's so iconic, and in the moment, there wasn't anything coming after the fact, or there wasn't anything I could just jump right into, I should say. So it gives you time to sit down and speculate. And, because of that, you remember a lot. At least I do. During that, he's being pulled in the water and everything, and all he's got going through his mind is his death curse. Die alone. He's in the dark, murky depths, falling deeper and deeper with a bullet in his chest. And then, he keeps repeating that in his head, and then someone else says hush, and so I'm thinking, what the hell does that mean? Who the hell could that be? And I sit there and I'm it's one of those things where you rack your brain with it, and we didn't have nearly as much info, of course, available at the time. So I'm thinking, okay, was it one of the angels come and help him? Did something come and save him? And then the next book comes along and you find out, no, he's dead. And then that right there. Okay, so I want to also point out that Ghost Story is one of my lesser liked books of the series, and it's mainly because of how utterly different it is to every damn thing else. It's almost like a different genre. And that was also bolstered onto the fact that Sarah, are you audiobook or are you doing Dead Tree?
So I did audio up until Changes.
You didn't do audiobook for Changes?
No, I wanted to read it fast.
I would strongly recommend going back and experiencing that one with the audiobook, because Marster's delivery.
So I did go back and listen to the chapter where he kills Susan on audio, because a bunch of people, when I said that I read it, they're like, you need to listen to this part. So I did go and listen to that.
Just so you can be scarred.
Yeah.
So good. But That being said, though, did you read the rest? You didn't do any
I
more
read the
audiobooks
rest.
after
Yeah,
the fact?
I did. Yeah, I
Okay.
read the rest.
So you didn't experience this. When I got to Ghost Story has a bit of a controversy going on with it, or at least it did. So this was the only book of the series up to it being published that did not have James Marsters as Harry.
Right.
It was John Glover. So it felt even more alien to me because of that.
That makes sense. He did go back and re-record, right?
He did.
Like now there is.
So now there's continuity and across the board. Which, all right, I want to say this: I really like John Glover, and he's great. I think he's great in damn near anything he does, and he did a good job. But he's not Harry,
right?
You know, he's
and
not,
after 12 books, no one's going to be. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
No
it's not his fault. I do not fault him, and I remember fondly, the ghost stories with him because it actually helped in a lot of ways because everything in the book was alien. Everything in the book was weird and different. So why not have him sound weird and different?
Yeah.
But it was just...
It was a strange experience.
Yeah, you had to have been there to experience changes going into Ghost Story for the first time without knowing that there are later books, and Harry's the protagonist of those later books.
Yeah. Yeah, but it must have been a weird feeling. I honestly thought, so my thought about Ghost Story, because I knew that they continued on, and I knew Harry was in the other books because he's on the cover of all of them, obviously. So I was like, this is how Jim Butcher gets him out of being the Winter Knight, because Harry has died, so now he's fulfilled like his life debt to Mab. So when he is alive again, he won't need to be her knight anymore. And I was like, how clever of you. And then it didn't happen. I was like, how stupid of me to even think he was going to do
that. I think it would have been so easy.
Right.
Like he could have just died and got away with it.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I mean, for me, like, Ghost Story has this big thing in the Dresden community where we're just like, how do you really feel about it? The one thing I will say, and I as I've went back through and I just went back through it here recently, is like the writing, his craft. This might be his best writing, but like Nathan said, the feel of the book doesn't feel quite like your normal Dresden book. It seemed like Ghost Story was pretty much just a character study. There wasn't
any huge stakes or anything. But there wasn't.
I mean, life and death.
No. I'm saying there wasn't any world-changing stakes.
Yeah.
It was all very personal.
Yeah, it seemed, and I mean, he does this where, everything can't be so high stakes. It did feel like it came down, a little bit. But I liked in this that we got to see, Morty being more, more of a hero.
Redeemed, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And who knew? While, as Molly would attest to, is like Harry was the reason that the majority of the bad guys or bad things never came to, Chicago, because the Mad Wizard Dresden was there
to take care of it.
The city wasn't being ravaged by spirits because of Morty. Like who would have thought? Yeah, who would have thought?
I liked Ghost Story. I think it was definitely more introspective, but I agree with Derry. I liked the intimacy after changes, and I wonder if we're going to get a similar book to Ghost Story next. Like, is that going to be the feeling of the book? Because so many things also happen in Battleground, which we can't talk about here. But I wonder if we're going to get
things happen in Battleground.
We need like the same catharsis following such an intense book. Like Changes and Battleground are definitely the two most intense.
Oh, easily.
Dresden books.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, we don't really want to jump ahead, but of course, he had the audio novella, and I'm wondering if that was the come down.
That was his serving as that like
if he was just going to give us a little come down, and then the next book is still going to be way high up.
Yeah.
But I sneakily suspect it will be a come down book because stuff.
How can you go
we'll have
up?
to get into that when we get there.
after that. But yeah, I mean, again, we got to see Evil Bob. Evil Bob was that I love, like, he's like, oh, he's like, you can take him though, right? Since he's only just a part of you. And he goes, oh no, that Bob worked out. Like, he lifted
I love
weights.
how he got made. I love how he got made because in Deadbeat, Evil Bob manifests when Harry tells him to remember all the crap that he told himself, that he said he was going to forget. And then afterwards he said, forget it all again. And Bob was like, all right, cool, done. And then in this book, you find out that he was like, well, I forgot all that stuff like you told me to, but I wanted to make sure I couldn't remember it again. So I just kind of cut it out of me. And you're like, what the hell do you mean you cut it out of you? What does that mean?
Yeah, well, he says, he's like, the next guy could have just told me to remember it, so I just lopped it off.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And what did you think about Molly being the rag lady and like everything that she was doing, everything she was going through?
That was so sad. So it was sad in the beginning, and I was like, oh, Molly is really beaten up about Dresden's death. Then when you finish the book and you find out about Dresden's death, you're like, no wonder Molly is so messed up. Like, not only did this happen, but you did her dirty, Harry.
Dirty, yeah. Yeah, like you made her do that, And that's one thing, like when I did the review for Ghost Stories, that's one of the things I brought up, like I kind of talked about for the longest, was like Dresden, like you put all that on her, like that was so bad.
It's worse than a lot of people I think too, considering Molly is by and large an empath. So all of the emotional turmoil, it's cranked up to 11 for her.
And she loves Harry. She loves him.
Yes.
And it's not a like a student to a teacher fling or admiration. No, she has full blown heartthrob love for him.
Like she loves him in lots of ways, right? Like she loves him as a mentor. She loves him as a romantic interest. She loves him as like hero worship from childhood. Yeah. She has there's so much. She has so much emotion for Harry.
There's layers to the damage.
There is so many layers to the damage.
Well, and he even what was it? Like, I forget if she said it at the house or if she said it at the restaurant, but like, he's like something to the effect of like, oh, it was something about loving you, but like it was something, it was never that way. And she kind of makes a passing thing of, it was never that way for you. And he's like, huh? And like he's still like not getting it, that like, yeah, she's in love with you, Like, and like you said, it's everything. It's like, she was what, like 13, 14, something like that, in the first book. And she's like, he was the guy that swept in and, heroic, saved everybody's life with magic. And,
and also kind of the bad, like the
bad boy.
The bad boy. Like, her dad is an agent of God, and then you have Harry who comes in who's just like chaos in a bottle. It's such a contrast, but yeah, it sucks. I felt so badly for Molly in this book, and I felt it throughout the whole book, and then when we got to the end and we found out, I was just like, this is too much.
I mean, well, and like,
forget well, go ahead, Joe, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, don't forget the added turmoil of being the direct student of Leah.
Yes.
She put her through absolute physical and emotional hell, and that was the goal.
Yeah.
And Molly takes it as a punishment, right? Like she's like, I killed Harry. I deserve this. You could not hurt me enough, because you cannot, like, what you do to me physically can never outweigh what I am feeling emotionally. And it's horrible. Ugh. It's also horrible.
And yeah, I was just about to bring this up. Like, if you don't get hit in the feels when everyone's like, "Oh, prove that Harry's here, or you're just messing with us," and then Mister runs and slides across the floor and smacks into
Shoulder
nothing,
blocks him.
and I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is dust. Like, my house is so dusty. Like, it's, I was just like, and then I love Morty's just like, oh, you tell everybody all these things, and then one little cat comes through the room, and there's everyone's crying.
Well, oh god, and they had, this is the first time you see Molly in the book, and you really get you get to take in how utterly damaged she is after Harry died and everything, and then like to add on top of insult to injury to her and everything, she's the one who 100% verifies that it is him because she uses her wizard sight to see him, and when like it breaks her in a lot of ways. Like she breaks down and she's crying during that scene, if I recall. And then she goes over to Murphy, and Murphy's like, "Was it him?" And she's like, "He started everything out with a Star Wars quote." And then Murph's like, "Ah."
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, and another thing that this book shows is that, like, Harry was the divider or the buffer between everybody and every bad decision that they would have had to make had he not been there. Like, he was the one keeping all these creatures at bay. He was the one keeping Murphy from having to go to dark places for help. Like, and then once he's gone, to keep the city from falling into chaos, like, everybody had to go to their dark place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting too to see how they all grieve differently. Like, we see the persnickety Murphy of the early books come back, where she's just angry at everybody, she's irritable all the time, and that's so true. Like, it's such a good depiction of grief because she's falling back on all of those, in the way that she used to behave at the beginning when she didn't have anybody that she trusted and she didn't feel like she was part of something bigger. And it's just sad to see them all.
Yeah, Molly becomes incredibly self-destructive. Murphy does what, as you said there. Butters throws himself into science.
Yeah.
He's tinkering.
Rationality.
Exactly. He's trying to be as rational as possible. I don't remember. Thomas wasn't even in this book, was he?
That's the sad part.
Not to the end. Yeah.
That was my biggest qualm with Ghost Story. I was like, he's his brother, and we got almost nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I had some people, comment on, when I was talking about Ghost Story, and some people really hated the side quest with Harry and
like
the
young kid. Yeah,
they were just like, some people thought that it was just there to
as padding,
be kind of filler, a time filler, or move the pacing of the book a little bit. I mean, kinda.
I feel like it mirrors Harry's young life experiences, and we find out more about Harry's young life in this book, and that becomes, as we know, more important as we go on later in the series, like the things that happen to him and why. So I think it makes sense, but I can also see how people would feel like it felt like a side quest, because you get these like big, profound moments of grief from his whole extended, friends and family, and then you get this little group of, kids who are being manipulated.
Yeah, I think that's the big reason for the side quest, is for Harry to tell his story about him as a kid, which I think that was great.
Yeah, we finally got to see it.
Yeah, he who walks behind, and how he fought and everything. I really love that, and kind of, once, and of course, the Corpse Taker, Corpse Taker had to come back, and I really love that the end with Corpse Taker and and Molly and she's like, "Oh, you want to play mind games?" And
Yeah, the battle at the center of the mind.
Yes.
oh man,
And what was it? It looked like an Enterprise deck
Yes, when she was in the.
with Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's so funny too to me that Harry is the Star Wars guy. He's the Star Wars through and through, and little Molly over there, you know, like to contrast his skill set and his powers and everything, also likes the other geeky, you know, the quintessential geek show.
Mhm.
Instead of Star Wars, she's a Trekkie.
She's the Trekkie. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
you know, and well, and then again, Mort's back to save the day. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't have left an ectomancer untied or whatever, and just
With a bunch
been
of wraiths, right? With a bunch of
Yeah.
wraiths.
yeah, and yeah, I don't think she's coming back from that. I think that was the way to end her traveling through, you know, death and everything.
Good riddance to bad rubbish.
I really like that Morty came in and had a role in this book, and that he accomplished things, because I think, again, Jim is so good at setting up, like, giving us little things that set up bigger things later, because we need Harry to have the realization that he can be wrong about people and their character and what they can do and how they can help people, and Morty is the vehicle through which he has that realization. So it's interesting. I really liked it.
I would not mind seeing more Mort, you know, going forward and everything. Like,
Yeah,
he
I mean,
was good.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, of course, we get to the end with Mr. Sunshine, and you know, and he was just like, oh, he's like, you know, you could have a job here with me, and he's like, but before I go, I want to see. It's almost like you know, with what is it, the Scrooge, and you know, going around in the future, and you know, it's gave me that vibes. But yeah, like you said, when he's, you know, sees Thomas, I'm just like, man, like, and then we know what Harry did, you know, and you're just like, how did you do this to Harry? Like, you're destroying everybody, Harry. Like,
Oh, but it's so good. It's so good when you find out why it happened.
Yeah.
He literally had a goddamn fallen angel whisper in his ear, like. Okay, so yeah, when you say a fallen angel whispered in someone's ear, you're like, well, yeah, but you know, but it's a fallen angel. You know, as far as he was concerned, those were his own thoughts.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have something that debilitating, you know, coming through your own mind, like the mind is one of the most terrible things when it comes to self-destruction. We will spiral.
And like you said, you pointed out, Nathan, when we were talking about changes, like, Harry has lost everything at this point. Not everything. He still has his friends. And I think that's part of what Ghost Story reminds Harry, is that he's not alone, because so much of Dresden, which is reinforced all the time by the narration, because we get his single person point of view. He thinks that he has to do everything alone, and he needs to solve all these problems alone. And Ghost Story does show him that he's really important to Chicago, but it also shows him that his friends will work together, and they will help, and they will do things, and he has them, and they care about him. And so he needed that in order to realize that he, you know, it doesn't mean his doom that he has become the Winter Knight.
Yes.
And it, you know, it's a hard way to have to come to that lesson. And he does hurt people that he cares about by doing this. And so it makes these books so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's not perfect. Yeah. Like, if he were perfect, I would hate the series. It would be awful to read. Yeah. It wouldn't have gotten as far as it has, because no one cares about crap like that. We don't want a perfect hero to come in any piece of medium. You know, man, woman, you know, like Mary
Unless
Sue.
It's Michael Carpenter.
Yeah, he's got to stay God. Like,
but no, I understand.
Mary Sues are terrible regardless of what they're in, and you know, that would make him a Mary Sue, and it's just no. Give us flawed characters. We need something to build upon. We need someone. We need to. Hell, that's what makes you identify with characters, is to watch them, you know, better themselves as people. Yeah.
No,
but well, and I think that kind of pulls us to that final scene there where Harry wakes up and he's like, Pain, what? He's like, he thought he was supposed to go to heaven or supposed to go to hell. And then what's he see when he finally opens his eyes? But it's Mab's gaunt face. And she's like, mine. Like, and he's like, and Harry kept saying, like, you haven't helped me. To Uriel. He's like, you didn't help me. And then he's like, she can't change who you are. And he's like, and then he just starts laughing. And I love Harry's speech at the end. He's like, you won't compel me to do anything that I don't want to do. And I'm going to be the most effective, most feared knight you've ever had. He goes, and I won't be if you try to change me. He goes, because then I won't be me. And she's all like, how do you can talk to me like that? He goes, because if you do, you're like, I'll just do exactly what you say, and I won't do anything else, and I'll be a meteoric knight. And what's worse than mediocrity? And I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens after this. And then of course we find out that like Demon Reach has been pumping, whatever it, through.
Nutrients is what came to my mind. Like Mab was keeping his soul tethered to his body.
Mm-hmm.
Demon Reach was feeding his body, and the parasite was circulating things.
Yeah.
And this is the first time you hear the parasite, and you're like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
And that will be discussed further in later books.
But
that ending, I can see for anyone who didn't have Cold Days immediately available to them, I can see how the end of Ghost Story would be like, Butcher.
Because his damn hooks.
Right. It would have been so painful to have to wait for that.
Sarah.
It was. Yeah, I can imagine.
It was.
It must have been.
It was the worst.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I just want to say thank you, Sarah, for being on here. I know everyone's had things that we've had to do. We've had to push this one back a couple different times, but it was so fun. Hopefully for the next one. To me, I mean, Changes is probably my favorite book of all time. But the next set, Cold Days and Skin Game, are my favorite to reread. So I am so excited to reread those, because I think we reached like a pinnacle with Changes, and I feel like Cold Days and Skin Game are pretty close. Mm-hmm. And to have those have books that good back to back should be crazy fun to talk about. Hopefully we can get all the gang back together. I even have some more people that might want to jump on with us. So that should be fun. Thank you, Nathan, for being able to jump on here. I know I'm probably interrupting your dinner, but since you're a few hours behind. And thank you, everybody who's been on here and commenting like crazy and stuff. I try to keep up with everybody. And we will probably see you here in about a month. So thank you all, and see you next.